Hi you guys, this is Nicole from My Carolina Garden. I garden in Zone 8B in southeastern North Carolina, and I want to welcome you to my front yard May garden tour. I start off with some great things to show you right at the start of my peninsula bed. So I have a crepe myrtle that anchors this side of the peninsula garden, and then to the back side is a magnolia tree. So those are kind of my starting and ending points of this garden. Right here, I have my Marcus salvia. This has already been blooming for weeks at this point. This is a pretty cold tolerant plant, so it's like hardy to zones 4. Right behind it, I have my orange daylilies. They have only been blooming for about maybe a week now. And of course, you know, they close up at night and open back up during the day. And so this morning when I wanted to start the tour, they were still sleepy. So that's why we took some drone footage over this garden as the sun was coming up, and you can see that the lilies were still shut. So beautiful color just between those two, but my favorite thing right here is my Echinacea. This Echinacea, I love it anyway, you know, as a cone flower, but its first blooms are the most vibrant. So this is my favorite time of year with them. I have lots of buds here, but this is my first bloom, and I do have more Echinacea in this garden as well. My front yard garden tour in May is one of my favorite tours to do because I have so much color happening all at once. So with the orange daylilies that I have happening here, I have some more Echinacea, another plant blooming here where I have a couple of flowers. I have purple balloon flowers in front of me. Those are very unusual. I love the way the buds start to open up. Oh, the shape of them is just wonderful. And then I have some evening primrose, which are these yellow buttercup flowers that you see blooming around me. I have them behind me, beside me, they're kind of all over. The evening primrose I've talked about before as being an aggressive spreader. It's self-seeds and it just kind of goes wherever it wants to. Now I haven't seen it edging out any other plants or, you know, becoming difficult in that way, but if you are going to plant some evening primrose, please make sure you have the space for it. I only have these blooms that you see happening right now, but probably in the next few days, this is all going to be a sea of yellow, and I am not complaining about that. The primrose will probably only bloom for about 2 weeks, whereas these other things are going to keep going for much, much longer than that. Allow me to just get a little more up close and personal to the balloon flower specifically, but I do have the Echinacea and the primrose right there behind it. All of these things are perennials. Perennials are my favorite thing because I love how they get larger. You can divide them up and then move your divisions into other parts of your landscape. Also, all of these things that I have here, including the orange daylilies in the back, are all hardy to zones like 3 and 4. So many people get to enjoy these particular perennials. Just coming right around to the back side of the peninsula, I wanted to point out my purple elegance lavender, which has such a beautiful scent as I'm laying here and the breeze is blowing. And then my black and blue salvia. So the lavender here is hardy to about zone 5, and the black and blue salvia is more like zone 7. So they like it a little bit warmer. The black and blue salvia is so awesome because you have the different toned flowers. The dark color is so purple, it almost looks like black. Hence the name, obviously. But the color combination with the warm oranges and also the yellow primrose, warm tones there, cool tones back here, those are color combinations that I am just a sucker for. I'm just jumping right on into the center of the flower bed, which I don't get to do all the time, but since we still have some space in here, I felt like I should. My yellow primrose, the evening, is in front of me here, so I wanted to point that out with the twilight primrose, which is the light pink that is blooming everywhere behind me. The twilight primrose started for me about 2 weeks ago, and I just assumed that both primroses were going to bloom at the same time, but so far, twilight started first. Let's see who ends first. I don't know. Just wanted to point out though, the twilight primrose is the same as the evening, where it is an aggressive self-seeder. So again, if you are going to use primrose in your garden, just make sure you have the space for it. As we're moving down the line a little bit here, I wanted to point out those are perennial hibiscus. They are going to have the huge magenta flowers on them. I have buds at the bottom, no blooms yet, but how exciting for me. The blanket flowers here are, I have a mixture of some that are blooming, some that are not quite yet, but definitely perennials. A lot of people have been telling me they are hardy up even into Canada. So some cold tolerant plants here. I'm just not sure if my particular variety is the same. I just don't know. We do see them growing wild at the beach here. They do love sandy soil, which is fabulous for those of us here on the coast that have extremely sandy soil. So blanket flowers are not fussy and, like I said, do really well just with the care of Mother Nature. So I do have liriope that lines the front of my flower bed. Some people I know are not that thrilled with it, but for me, I'm like, this is a variegated look. It is not tall, so it gives me cute little clumps of color just along the front. I love it, no biggie. This basket actually was an edible arrangement that somebody had sent to us, and I just figured I can pop this into my garden, and I have some lemon coral sedum starting to grow out of that. And then this direction over here, I have zebra grasses in the back for some height, and then this is where all the primrose is taking over. Okay, so it's not just the primrose taking over, but I also have the blanket flowers in here. Both things are amazing self-seeders, and so they're growing everywhere in here. And then this is my precious dianthus. Ooh, that reminds me. You know how sometimes things are just meant to be? Well, I've talked about this dianthus that's sitting in this front flower bed a whole bunch of times, and I never knew the name of it. And I thought maybe I got it from somewhere that didn't have a tag. And then suddenly the tag appeared. You know how that just happens? So this is actually the Super Trooper lilac on purple dianthus. I have it here and there, and it just has the very carnation style flower blooms on it, and it needs to be deadheaded. Make sure you deadhead your dianthus. That is just some advice from me to you. The twilight primrose, oh my gosh, it just blows so beautifully and gently in the breeze. I love it. So I have the primrose there. I have a pin cushion right here, which sort of blends into the background a little bit as that much primrose takes over. But I have the pin cushion. Here's another one of those Super Trooper dianthus right here. All these blanket flower seeds all in here. But this goodie, can you see this right here? This goodie is going to be a double scoop Echinacea. Boom, boom, two of them right next to each other. Well, most of my canna lilies and tropical plants are in the backyard. I do have a section of canna lilies up here as well, but as you can see, not a whole heck of a lot happening yet, except for this one. This one has a nice flower bud on it, and so I presume it will open sometime very soon. But right next to this baby, I have a guara. I love the guara because this variety has the dark colored foliage, so it's a dark red, and then the flowers are different shades of pink. So it's just something pretty pink and delicate. Okay, yes, and pink too. Love it. Just a smidge further back from the guara, I have some bunches of daylilies. Now these are a different variety than the orange ones, which are clearly in bloom. These have buds on them. Most specifically, you can see these buds in the back row here. And so a different variety, just not ready to open up yet. And then again, just popping around to the back side of the peninsula, this is where those daylilies are blooming right here behind me. Then I have some phlox that's here, very, very light purple colored phlox. This verbena right here is something that actually survives for me all winter. It stays evergreen and still blooms. So this one in particular has a spreading habit and it stays as a ground cover. Love it. Have a couple of different varieties, or I should say colors, not varieties. I have a couple colors of this and I love it because who doesn't want that kind of color in their winter garden as well? Going that direction, I have a couple of the silver artemisias. This is the first time I've had those. I understand they get a little larger and they'll also serve as well something that will take up a lot of space, which is great. Keep down on my weeds in this garden, I hope, but also I just love the silver foliage against the darkly colored mulch. My peninsula garden gets anchored by my magnolia tree, and then we kind of had a stopping point at my fence. Well, it turned out I wasn't satisfied with that, so I decided to extend my gardens to the outside of my fence line and keep them going this whole direction. Now, if you've been with me for a little while, you know that I have difficulties with erosion going down this slope here to my water swale. That's like a drainage ditch that catches my rain runoff. Adding the additional flower bed out here does help with this erosion problem though. So little by little, I'm extending my garden out here along the fence line and then also bringing it down the slope. If only I had all the money in the world, I'd fill this all with rock, which I love rock, but that's not an option. Coming down this fence line, actually quite a lot of it is pretty new. So if you look back at my very, very early spring garden, you're gonna see a lot of bare spots and things that weren't here. So I have just perennials really that I can divide up from other parts of my yard, and I took those separations and put them over here. That's how I'm extending my garden and trying to do it in a budget friendly way. So right here I have daisies. They just came from the back. I see a Japanese beetle already. Oh, it's gonna be time to get the Japanese beetles. Just wanted to talk about a few of the other transplants. I have tiger lilies that were from my backyard. I have canna lilies. Some of them have just been transplanted from the lower area here where they were not thriving to up here where they definitely are thriving. I have some Joe Pye weed. This came from my in-laws' house. I have some Russian sage. This came from my parents' house. So transplanting from my own yard as well as garden sharing, that's what makes this whole expansion possible. And as we keep going, all of this has been added this year. So all of these hostas, same deal, transplants from inside the backyard. I have another set of daylilies here, same thing. And then the furthest thing that you can see right now is my rose bush. I had transplanted a shrub of drift roses from the backyard in an area where they weren't going to be seen anymore and put those here. So no flowers on it right now after the transplant, but it is leafed out gorgeously and I just can't complain. So my expansion out here is more or less free, except for the things I have to buy, like the soil amendments or the mulch for the top layer. In my front flower bed, which is just the area in front of my front porch, essentially, in my walkway to the front porch, I start with this pot of dianthus. Again, just a different variety of dianthus, but I love it, love it, love it. And I have a sweet potato vine here that is lined with the purple tints, and I just love the way that these colors play off of each other. And then I have a turtle here that also has like these seashells on his back that have the purplish color as well. So this little combination is just cute and sweet. And then I have yet other dianthus right there that just lined the front of my flower bed. As gardeners, I think it's safe to say that we are always changing things around in our gardens. It could be small changes, it could be huge changes. Right now, this stage that I'm in is a very colorful stage. So my front yard gardens have tons and tons of color in them. I feel that they go together. They make me happy. So this is what I have. So let me show you. Let me point out everything. Starting from the very front, you'll see some purple. That is the same purple lavender that I have over in the Peninsula garden. Then the taller pink beauty in front of me, that is the double scoop bubblegum echinacea. So it doesn't look so much like a double scoop yet. It seems like these new buds actually look pretty similar to a regular echinacea. Pretty similar. There are some differences. But you'll see the double scoop get like a much poofier pom-pom head than it has right now, and then the rays really droop. So that's the double scoop bubblegum Echinacea. This is more of that trailing verbena I was talking about that stayed evergreen and flowered for me all winter long. So again, like I said, gorgeous, vibrant color. You just can't beat having that as your winter color. So I have a, what is this? I have a little lime punch hydrangea that is leafing out now. That's going to bloom later, but I think if the verbena keeps acting like this, I'm going to still have just wonderful color all right here. So this is the blue, what is it called? Grace Ward Lithidora. That is the blue flowers. They are tiny and delicate, so they don't add huge pops of blue, but they're there, and I know they're there. Kaleidoscope Abelia, I have 3 of those shrubs behind me there. Year-long evergreen color in that foliage, so I just can't complain. Now, as we get really close to my front porch, this lantana, which you can see some blooming already happening, is going to get fabulous. So it ends up being one of the main plants that welcomes you to the front of my house. So this lantana here is one thing I just wanted to point out. We have tons and tons of buds everywhere, but just, you know, some blooming beginning. And then behind that, I have yet another canna lily. Canna lilies are big in my yard. I love them. So with the dark red foliage here and then a red flower on it, love this canna lily. And it does get tall, so I still will be able to see the canna lily behind my lantana. Giving garden tours isn't only showing the things that we love, which I happen to love a lot of things I have, but also sometimes showing things that you don't really think are working. This is a Diamond Spire gardenia. I bought it in the fall and I hadn't had gardenias in my yard at all. Let me just see which zone 7 to 10. Gardenias are known to have beautiful fragrant flowers, and I don't have a lot of white in my garden, so those are 2 of the reasons I bought it. And then also the shrub stays evergreen, so I figured, great, more evergreen interest in the front. However, I have 2 things happening. One, a lot of leaves are yellowing. I felt like it did pretty decent throughout the fall and winter without having a lot of yellow leaves, but once spring came, I saw some more yellowing. And then the flowers come, they're small, that's okay, there's a lot of them, but they brown really quickly. So I'm not sure if anyone has any advice out there. Do you just keep trimming them back, like taking off the expired blooms? Or what do you do to make this look gorgeous? I wasn't sure my bearded iris was going to make it into my May garden tour because some of them have bloomed already and are done, but they seem to be going in phases. So even though these bearded irises are all the same and have come out exactly the same color, this one's the last, and it was literally like one at a time, so kind of strange. I have the golden sword yucca, evergreen interest, spiky plant that you can divide up, but I love it. I do have the ballerina red armeria right here. So again, these blooms are not tremendous in size, but they're super cool because they're like the rounded top. I have so many of the orange daylilies. And what the heck, I can't remember right now off the top of my head what the name of this plant is because I want to call it firecracker, but I don't think that was what it was. Oh my gosh. Well, it's slipping my mind right now, but it is coming back and starting to bloom again, and this goes all the way into winter. My garden plan for this year was to expand pretty much all of my gardens. And in the front here, I wanted to make my peninsula garden larger by coming this direction and not quite joining up to the front flower bed, but getting them closer so that there was just some walkway grass in between. I had originally started this idea or this garden bed with the idea that this side back here was going to be tall and everything going that way was going to be short. But as this flower bed is expanding, I've decided anything goes. So I have shorter things over on this side as well, and I'm happy with the way that all of it is going. Looking at it from above, the shapes of everything, the rounded curves, I was going to say edges, but the rounded curves of the flower beds are also very interesting to the eye, in my opinion. So I hope that you love what I have been doing here and maybe it's inspiring in some way. Thank you so much for watching my May garden tour, and happy planting.